So welcome everybody to our live webinar. I'm excited to bring you Joel Onyshuk. He is someone that we actually met on LinkedIn together. Ironically, it's such a good network. And in the last year or so, we've talked several times. Actually, Joel originally and I met talking about manufacturing, which is a little bit different, smaller side of our business at Mobilization Funding. But obviously, we talked a lot about construction. We talked about safety. We talked about a lot of the same things that are similar. And so Joel has now opened up his own business and co-founded a company called Unison. And Joel Onyshuk, I welcome you and thank you for spending the time with us today.
Oh, thanks, Scott. It's always fun to talk to you. It's fun to be down the road from you here in Tampa area. So I'm grateful for getting to know you on LinkedIn. Like you said, it is a powerful network, and to see where we've gotten to has been fun to watch play out. It
is cool. Yeah, fun fact for those of you who don't know, Joel is just 20 minutes down on the Tampa Bay, just like us. And so we're both enjoying this. Oh, it looks like it wants to break into fall and winter weather here for us a little sooner than we normally get, which would be fantastic. But we'll see how that goes. So, but to get started, Joel, help me understand a little bit about your background, how you got started. You know, we talked about manufacturing in here, and we talked a little bit about the construction business and how your new company kind of molds into that. But for everyone else, give them a little bit about your background, how you got started, what you're doing now, and why we're even on this today, talking about safety.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, you know, the background for me, spent many years working in the food, beverage, and CPG manufacturing sector with a company called Red Zone. Real great company, great product, got firsthand glimpses into the world of frontline teams, what it took to motivate, inspire, get them aligned around a common purpose, common goal, help them win cross-functionally every day against those goals. How do we reduce retention, improve retention by reducing turnover? How do we improve engagement? How do we improve productivity? All these things that matter, right? But of course, not losing safety along the way. Not losing our connection to our people and ensuring their physical, but also psychological, mental, emotional safety as well, and creating the environment for them to be successful. And so working with a lot of the bigger food, beverage, and CPG manufacturing companies, a lot of them Fortune 500, and a lot of smaller ones as well, got to sit kind of firsthand and see over 100 deployments of frontline engagement technology and empowerment technology and change management consulting along the way. To midsize and those large enterprise corporations. And so learned a heck of a lot along the way, learned a lot of things not to do, and of course, a lot of things to do. And, you know, when you look at 100, 106 or whatever it was, deployments of technology, you get a lifetime of learnings from that. And so that kind of paved the way as we looked at what that solution brought to the manufacturing sector. Boy, the challenges in the frontline industries elsewhere, whether it's healthcare or construction or hotels and hospitality, food service, it's still frontline associates. It's still people in the field delivering an absolutely vital service to an end user, end customer, and inspiring and engaging those folks to do the right things, the right time to deliver the right results are dramatically similar to the world that we were in before. And that was the genesis of Unison, Inc., which I had the privilege of co-founding with several former C-suite executives from Aramark, and then brought on some folks, including Mark Pelletier, who is formerly of Red Zone as well, who has even more experience than I do in that world of frontline engagement. And it's been incredible to watch things unfold since then. So thank you for giving me a chance to just give the background. It's been an exciting journey, and now here we are today.
Yeah, it's cool. When you and I first met, and I asked you about manufacturing and what you guys did, and just your whole experience and breadth of knowledge around that. And I think CPG, if I'm correct, is consumer product groups, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah, consumer packaged goods. Yeah, anything. I like to say it could basically include anything in the store that you could make in a process manufacturing environment that you don't eat, basically.
That's right. And so what I thought was interesting about that is in a plant like that, and it's funny because our COO here, Joe Millman, came from Publix, and he worked in the plants and managed them. And he talks about the actual similarities and uniform policies and procedures that go along with a construction site, right, as in a plant, and safety, OSHA standards, performance, process improvement, and of course, just safety standards in general, and continuous training is such a key critical component. So right. I found it interesting that when you talked about that with me, and I was asking you about the construction industry. If you guys thought about that, tell me a little bit about where you see the parallels are and how we can talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah, I mean, again, those similarities of you've got frontline workers, associates delivering on the brand promise every day, delivering a service, an outcome that is critical to the company is so similar. I mean, I remember sitting in boardrooms and, executives of these large companies would say, frankly, and they're the right kind of leaders, they would say, if those frontline associates aren't doing their jobs well every day, I don't have a job, right? I mean, if you're the CEO of a construction company, VP of a construction company, you don't have a job unless those folks in the field every day are doing theirs well. And so it's on us, it behooves us to take the initiative of creating the right environment for those people to be successful, to create the right boundaries and culture for them to succeed, and then turn them loose and create ultimately a healthy place that they can thrive. They can know what's expected of them. They can win every day. They know if they're winning or losing. They have constant cross-functional communication and collaboration with one another, and they work together as a unified group rather than distributed teams kind of doing their own thing. And you begin to see in that environment a disconnect of that brand promise being lived out locally.
Absolutely. So in your experience, I think we could jump right into this case study because it's what really caught my eye. Right. And I refer to it as the Aramark offshore case study. I don't know if that's exactly what you guys call it, but correct me if I'm wrong. And if you could just tell a little bit of folks about that, that was actually on very similar to a construction site. It was on an oil rig, correct?
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, I wasn't necessarily familiar with this as much. You've got these big oil rigs that are owned by a variety of big oil companies. And on those oil rigs, you've got a bunch of staff who are, of course, extracting the oil. But surrounding them, staffing these oil rigs are a whole host of support individuals, support teams, doing things like housekeeping and dry cleaning and food service and maintenance tasks and things like that. And so those are generally departmental individuals who are people who are working for another company, a supporting provider like Aramark, for example, and others. And so those folks are contracted with the oil companies to support those oil teams, but they work side by side with them so closely and deliver such simultaneous value alongside one another that they have to be in lockstep with the focus on safety in that environment. You can imagine on an oil rig, there are so many hazards that you could come across. You get your head chopped off by a helicopter, God forbid. You could have a slip and a fall on a slippery oil spill on the deck. You could get bonked in the head by a big piece of machinery. You could fall off and drown or have a serious injury on the deck. There's a whole host of things that could happen, just like if you're in roofing or in whatever environment that you're in construction, where those injuries can be devastating. And unfortunately, unlike when you're on the ground on a construction site on land, you are very, very far away from rescue. You are a very long helicopter ride away from getting potentially the help you need to be healthy and well after a serious incident. So safety is of utmost concern in that environment.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what is Frontline's role with Aramark in that scenario, and then how did that sort of give the birth to what you're thinking about for the construction industry?
Yeah. So, as I said, they're supporting these oil workers, right? And they're doing all these auxiliary tasks around them every day. And so as they looked at safety became, and it continues to be, Aramark's primary driver, or one of their primary drivers of differentiation and value in the market. You can go get your services similar to Aramark by a whole host of organizations, big and small and everything in between. But why should you work with Aramark? And why should you work, for example, with your construction company or your manufacturing company or whatever it may be? And a lot of times the differentiator is safety. And so for Aramark, they had the greatest safety record of all the competitors, but they knew that when you're already good, when you're already great, sometimes you struggle to get better. Sometimes you can sit in your heels and go, well, we've kind of arrived, right? We've gotten to a place that we're comfortable and we don't want to rock the boat. So for us, when we looked at their goal of winning business and continuing to grow their company, leaning on the safety initiative that they had, we asked them, what is your goal? What is your focus, and how can we come alongside of you? And you can see the little tagline here in the corner, to put your best team everywhere. What is your safest team doing every day? And let's put them everywhere in your organization. Let's deconstruct the daily behavior, structures, and routines around the things they're doing, taking into account all these former best practices from the global manufacturing companies and folks that we've worked with thousands and hundreds of times beforehand. And let's create a really embedded safety culture. So there's a consistency of messaging across every associate in this distributed workforce on what it means to be safe. And so there are a few things they were looking to accomplish, Scott. They were looking to have a daily consistency in their leadership across every location, because that's the key to everything else, right? 70% of team engagement stems from that frontline leader. They were looking to provide visibility to the daily briefing, that safety stand-up toolbox talk. Is it even taking place? Because it has to, and I know many of you on the line right now have similar things that you cross your fingers and hope. Is it happening? We told them they should be happening, and we gave them the resources so it's happening, but do we know it's actually happening? And are the right conversations taking place in those meetings? And then how do we bring digital enablement to that process of the daily brief, of the toolbox talk, to unlock really deep strategic insights across the business? So that was number one, is the daily briefing. How can we do that better? But then number two, and this is, I think, the nirvana for a lot of frontline organizations, is can we get the frontline associates bought in and have an ownership mentality over this thing, right? It's not just the managers doing the things they're supposed to be doing, which is great, and we need to do that. It's pushing that down even further to the frontline associates who are on the oil rig, in the construction site. And so how can we enable, this was their goal, frontline safety observations to be captured in a more impactful, rapid, easily disseminated way in real time that encourages everyone to be more participative and aware of their environments and share those learnings rapidly, and encourage those same safety observations to be shared with clients, management, and other locations so we can all learn from one another. And what they found along the way, Scott, was really, really cool. In a period of about 9 weeks, they really reinforced and improved their safety culture, and they were recognized by their clients as even more of a thought leader in what they're delivering as a competitive advantage. And the reason for that was a 200% increase of safety observations coming from the front line of the company, and a subsequent 300% decrease in safety incidents. So we like to talk about the right behaviors leading to the right results. Our goal isn't be more safe. Our goal is do the right behaviors that lead to the right results of being more safe. And we can be in the back foot a lot of times looking back and saying, were we more safe? What was our record? But more importantly, can we get granular on those details to say, are the right behaviors happening at a daily level that lead to success? And that's what we really helped Airmark Offshore unpack. And it was really, really cool to see.
So it's in like talking about that, unpack that a little bit. Is that like, for example, I envision someone in the kitchen being empowered to speak up more quickly and have a sense of freedom to speak their mind. Oh, these knives are just laid out, therefore, if we put them away, or hey, if we could create an easier way to use the knife, keep it clean, and put it into something safer, quicker, that I can keep accessing it. And so all of a sudden management would create that knife box, so to speak. And now no one gets cut less. So is it something like that where you're empowered the folks to speak up, but also the management to act?
Right. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing. On one hand, you're creating the daily structure. So I absolutely have an opportunity to bring it up, right? Those safety huddles are critically important. And yet a lot of organizations, perhaps like some on the call now, are crossing their fingers and saying, I hope it's happening. Is it happening? Your managers, of course, are going to say, yes, it's happening. So you never really know for sure that it's happening. And then, but when it is, and it's consistent and it's daily, and the right expectations are set, that the right people at the right time are going to talk about the right things that drive the right results, you are, as a frontline associate, compelled to come to that meeting prepared, thinking about the things that we're going to be talking about, bringing to mind the safety challenges and opportunities that you see in your role. So that's one thing. The second half, though, is how do we provide the right digital enablement at a daily level for, in real time, an associate to pick up their personal device or a work device or whatever device they have available to them and immediately allocate a safety observation. So rather than, hey, tomorrow morning when we talk about safety, bring up anything you saw, or walk away from this environment that you're in to go tell someone and potentially lead someone into experiencing that safety problem, or talk to your supervisor in a few hours when you see him or her next and you forget about it, you now have immediate access to bringing up that safety observation, allocating it in a simple admin light kind of environment on your device, and then have the information immediately visible to management, your peers, and everyone across other locations, if you so desire, to bring that awareness. And so it's that twofold environment of, creating the daily conversation that's two-way, and it creates that dialogue of cross-functional communal awareness of those safety opportunities, and then provide the digital enablement in real time to empower that associate with that understanding of how critical this is, that's reinforced in that daily meeting, to then do it in an easy way.
So what are some of the most misunderstood elements of creating that safety culture then, in your experience?
I think maybe the most misunderstood or ignored opportunity is, I think people really, I think people don't believe in the power of the front line to actually do this stuff. I think people
like they're not capable, or
I think they diminish the capability and say they're never going to do it. They don't care. You don't understand my workforce. They're never going to show up and do this. And so rather than empowering and enabling and collecting the ideas and the thoughts and the potential solutions from their front lines, they try to do this top-down push of control. And they say, because I can't trust you to do the right thing, I'm going to now tell you what to do and control you to do it. And rather than a freeing environment that elicits my imagination, elicits my engagement, elicits my participation, and creates in me an ownership mentality over these outcomes, it actually leads to disengagement, right? As you push something on me that I don't quite understand, I don't really want to do because it's not my idea, it's not something that I find value in, it's not something I enjoy, and the environment around me doesn't support, it creates that disengagement that I think ultimately leads to the safety incidences that we actually see.
Interesting. So is something as simple as like onboarding new employees the correct way for safety culture, or is it more than just that?
Well, it has to start there, obviously. Our hiring process and our onboarding process is critical. We have to set the tone. We have to demonstrate the criticality of safety and of the other metrics that we care about, right? And we have to provide them the access to the right leaders and the right leadership conversations to set you up for success. But then, and this is where I think a lot of organizations miss the mark, it's about that daily reinforcement of those conversations, right? We have the best intentions in the world, but how much of the stuff we learn about or think about just disappears as soon as we walk away, right? So I think about the fact that, in fact, right now, my keys are in the right pocket of my pants. If they're not in the right pocket of my pants, I promise you, I'm going to lose them, right? And I've operationalized this habit that because it's in the right pocket of my pants, I don't even need to think about it. It's there, and because it's there, I have a daily awareness and a focus on where it's going to be, and that when I need it, it's going to be there. So it frees me to think about everything else, right? I don't need to go searching for my keys. If it wasn't in this pocket, it's going to distract me and it's going to cause me to be late and all this different stuff. Where does this play in? That repeated follow-up at a daily level reinforces the criticality of these things, but actually frees people because it becomes so embedded in them that it no longer becomes a focus that's like, I have to think about, okay, do a safety observation, do this thing, focus on the right thing. It's just part of who I am. It's my DNA. I am a safe person because I have been reinforced consistently, and my manager cares enough about me to elicit the conversation versus push down what I should be doing.
So let's say, for example, we onboard the folks, we have a culture of safety and training. You have inherently a frontline workforce that if with absent those items wouldn't just speak up and wouldn't just speak freely, and it just wouldn't feel that way. So let's just assume now we've empowered them to do that. You're having the daily huddle. What do the best managers do to make those huddles the most effective, other than just, hey, I have the meeting, my guys show, and what, like what do the best managers do to really bring that home?
I love the question. It is so good because it's not about checking the box to just say we did it, right? Unfortunately, you're actually highlighting something I'm really passionate about. Unfortunately, a lot of managers have been elevated to the position of supervisor or manager because they know, frankly, how to do the jobs of those who they oversee now as well or better than them. That's why they were promoted, right? Great job. You're now a manager. But I wonder how many people on the line right now would raise their hand and say, when that happened in my experience, I was given leadership training. I was poured into to understand how to focus my team on the daily objective in a way that made sense and elicited an ownership mentality that they wanted to do it. It was part of who they were now. I wonder how many people would raise their hand and say, I am consistently keeping score with my people to know if we're winning or losing, and reinforcing and saying, here's where we stand against our targets and how we're currently trending and what we need to do differently, but not just what I think we should do differently. How often are those managers harnessing the ideas from their people to say, I'm not the one with all the answers. You guys are on the front lines. You'd see this stuff every day. What do we need to be doing differently? Help me understand. Empower associates to contribute to the improvement of the organization in meeting their objectives. And then how many of us would raise their hand and say, we're very confident we've been trained along the way in those various supervisory and management positions, that we need to have a two-way dialogue. It's not about me knowing all the answers and telling you what to do. It's about having a conversation and creating the environment for you to have conversations with each other cross-departmentally to eliminate silos and create self-organization in our teams to create the culture that wins together. And ultimately, how many of us would say that we have in real time as leaders, even now, the leading indicators to success, that we know the right behaviors are happening at the right time to lead to those right results? So I just explained everything, but I'll itemize it for you. The best managers focus their team on a daily business objective that team can actually accomplish. They keep score with them to measure that score at the frontline level, to know in real time if they're winning or losing. They solicit the ideas from their team to empower them to bring their ideas to work together toward the improvement of the organization and meeting those objectives. They provide informal communication opportunities or even digital tools to eliminate those silos of communication. So it's not just me talking to myself all the time, or just me with my team talking to our team, but everyone has access to everyone they need in the moment they need it. And lastly, the best managers have leading indicators that allow them to know if we're winning or losing, to know if the right behaviors that we know will lead to success are present. And if they're not, I can manage by exception in those moments. And I think along the way, that incentivization of achieving that goal needs to make sense. There needs to be a strong what's in it for me to those frontline associates, that it's not about the company hitting objectives and we all get a rah, but I actually get something out of it. I think that's missing from a lot of folks who I've talked to is, yeah, we all win and it's a pat in the back, but okay, my boss got the bonus. What do I get? Mm-hmm. And I think that's missing a lot of times. That's probably a whole other conversation to have when it comes to reward.
I can chime in on that. I can tell you right now that if you align incentives or incentive compensation, or even just incentives, it doesn't have to be compensation all the time.
Right.
These simple things is just recognition, awards, the team awards, the project awards, the frontline team project for certain goals. You can end up doing all kinds of different things. They don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be compensated.
They don't. And that's the thing, you can't see it. Behind me, there's a bookshelf. And on that bookshelf for many years, we're talking 10, early in my career, I received an excellence award from my boss's boss. And he didn't know my name. I know he didn't know my name. We never met, right? The guy came in and he said, "Hey, I want to give you this excellence award for customer service and blah, 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 blah." And I was probably in my early 20s at the time. And it was this printed out paper thing that he probably had a secretary, make for him, and then just handed it to him as he walked out the door and said, "Give this to some guy named Joel." And, but he did it. And for a decade, that sat behind me in my office as I changed jobs 3 times, as I was so removed from that because it mattered that I was noticed. And so you're absolutely right. Celebration, even just like a traveling trophy or an award or a quarterly, team, dinner or something, just do something. And a lot of times something is, of course, always better than nothing, but keeps you apart, stands you apart from your competition, because I could be a frontline associate that goes and makes the same amount of money somewhere else. But if they're not celebrating and they're not creating a culture of celebration where I am recognized consistently, I'm coming right back to you because you are.
It's a human need. Humans need to feel like they're contributing something. They need to feel recognized, especially in a business, especially in an employee manager type scenario or situation, or, people want to be on winning teams.
They do.
Exactly. There was some thought I had, and I wanted to ask your opinion on this. When it comes to construction, there's subcontractors and there's general contractors and there's developers and there's bankers, and there could also be multiple subs and trade partners on a specific project. Mm-hmm. So let's just assume you're one of the trade partners, or even a general contractor, and you're working with a subcontractor of yours, and you're trying to control the safety of this project, and you're trying to put a culture into a project, but you don't own the employees and the relationship between the project and the employees. You have other companies on there with their own cultures and their own methods. How can you take this process on a construction site and instill it into not only your own team members and employees, but also your trade partners and their employees and their team members that they have either on the project site or coming and going off of the project site?
Yes, great question. This is something similar to the offshore conversation where, you've got the oil rig employees, got the Airmark, in this example, employees, and they can't bump into each other, right? Like, BP or Total Energies or whoever is, drilling the oil, they have their own safety stuff they need to be doing day in and day out. They have their own metrics, their own KPIs, and their own culture. And yet they do need to operate as one. And so I think at the top, you have to start there always. There has to be alignment that from your leadership team and your subcontractor's leadership team, or whoever you're working with, that there's an awareness. This is who we are. This is what we do. And in working together, we have to understand at the top down where we align and where we do not. And then we have to create that ownership mentality. Again, we're getting back to that again, and it's so important at the front lines to create the conversation that because I own this, think back to Airmark, because you're in my kitchen right now grabbing a cookie, or because I see you walking through my hallway where I've got housekeeping stuff set up and you could trip or whatever it may be, I, with the awareness and the culture that's been created around me, I'm looking out for you. And so I'm bringing up safety things that you might not be aware of that play into my world, and I'm aware of myself. But now we're creating this conversation and accountability and transparency between our organizations, which actually creates an even more safe culture, because when you combine both safety cultures and initiatives into one kind of holistic environment, and we have this mutual accountability and transparency and care for one another in this safe environment, we're not just looking out for our teams and ourselves, we're looking out for everyone else around us too. And I think that top-down alignment, and then that accountability at the front lines, that you're entering my space now, and I'm going to make sure you're safe, has to happen.
Right. All right. So let me ask you this. So I'm listening to this call. I'm interested. It sounds cool. I don't really know what to do yet, but I'm at least excited enough. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do one thing and see if it works. So if I do nothing else, I can't build this whole program. I'm not going to hire somebody.
Right.
But I got to do something. What's the one thing I can do today, tomorrow, implement for safety that can make a big enough impact where I say, you know what, works, and I need to bring somebody in to help me really iron this out. The one take home.
One take home. Well, I'll give you two. One's cheating. I'll give you the one you're actually asking for. The first one, and I put this in the chat, I'm not sure if Ariane or yourself can distribute it. I'm going to provide this resource to you, to anyone listening, for free. It's an ebook. I happen to like it because I wrote it, but it really disseminates a lot of the conversation today in kind of 5 actionable steps that you can do to transform your front lines, and it can really feed into this conversation. So download that. It's free. Just put your email address. I will personally email it to you after this is over, and we can go from there. But the one takeaway I would say, if you don't download the ebook, and again, we easily forget everything we do unless we kind of operationalize it, is ask your frontline for their ideas.
Ask. Great.
The best ideas to transform your business already are out there. Small side note, when the former CEO of Best Buy, Hubert Joly, took over, and he was put in charge of the turnaround strategy for Best Buy back when it was languishing and really struggling in the retail world. Amazon was killing them. A lot of online retailers were killing them, and big box was going away. When he came in, the very first thing he did was go work side by side with his frontline associates in one of his local stores and ask for their feedback, and saw their challenges, heard their frustrations. And he said that, and you can read his book on it, The Heart of Business. I highly recommend it. By the time he left that day, this is not exaggeration, he knew everything he needed to know to turn around that business. Now, of course, the how and the process and all that stuff was a challenge, and they had to go through those steps. But he knew at a high level everything he needed to know to transform that entire business, and it started at the front lines. I think that lesson is there for all of us, that especially as our titles change and we work our way up in an organization and we get farther and farther removed from our front lines, spend the time with the frontline associates side by side and ask for their ideas. And you will see, if you create the right culture where they're not afraid, they don't feel unsafe, they don't feel judged, they don't feel like they have to keep it all to themselves. But if you create the right culture, they will tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, you're dead on. I've learned I've been fortunate to learn from a few folks, and one of the things that they've taught me that I really have found to be so true is 2 things. Number one, when you're a leader of a business or a leader of an organization of any kind or department, you have this feeling typically that you're supposed to know everything, and that you're there to know and you're there to tell. And it's not really true. And what the person told me was, Scott, you're just there to make the decision. You're not there to know everything. And so you have to own the decision, but where you get the information is critical. It should come from your team. It should come from the people closest to the customer, or in this case, closest to the incident, closest to the problem, closest to the actual work, which is in your case, the plant or the field or the construction site. Right. And it's there where you'll get the best answers because they're in front of everyone. They know the pulse. You don't have to go figure it out and tell them. And it was so true because, what frustrated me so many times when I was a frontline employee was somebody go to a meeting, we'd all go and they'd launch this new program and be like, what planet are they on? Like, this is never going to work. And you could run off the 17 reasons why. And back then you just thought, well, they must be smarter or better than me. And so therefore, boom. But it wasn't until someone framed that up for me to think that. And so if you're a CEO or you're a leader or a manager of a department or business, just get over that, because you're not supposed to know. You're actually just supposed to make the decision, and getting the information, be a gatherer of that information, and then execute the plan. That's the key thing to do. And, you're not going to look weak doing that. And matter of fact, you're smart for doing that. And that sounds exactly like what you just described in that book.
Yeah, I don't know who told this to me, but I'm sure they didn't make it up themselves. But the idea that as a leader, it's your job to give the praise to everyone else when it goes well, and take the responsibility yourself when it goes badly. I love that idea. And you're right. I mean, every idea is on the front lines, and all I have to do is ask. And it takes actually a great burden off our shoulders to know it all. Because we don't know it all. And any of us who think we do are in trouble, because we're probably going to miss some stuff along the way that could, in this case, potentially injure people around us.
Yeah. And the other thing is, there's nothing more empowering to a team to know they're heard. they don't necessarily have to, you don't have to take their advice, but they want to know they were genuinely heard. And they might see you take someone else's advice. It's okay. Like, it's as long as it's not projected down, a feeling of being heard is more important. And then the recognition that goes along with it.
No, it's a great point. One of the things we do at Unison a lot is like, how do we create the positive feedback loop to that employee whose idea was solicited, right? It's great to, garner ideas, but how many of us have processes right now? And maybe you don't, but where, oh yeah, we can have, employees submit their ideas to this HR portal anytime they want. Or back in the day, the little brown box that you shoved your stuff into on site of the ideas box, but it disappears into the ether. Who read it? What did they think? Was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? Is it going to be implemented? Is it crap? Right? I mean, like, I have no idea. And so because there's no feedback loop, we stop giving our ideas. Like, why would I tell you my ideas if no one's listening? Right? And so creating the opportunity for people to hear that feedback within a day or less. And if it's a great idea, have visibility to where it's being enacted. If it's not a great idea, hearing the feedback of appreciation for bringing it up and how it honed the ultimate decision that we made. And just give them credit for saying, hey, you know what? Regardless of whether we use it or not, I really appreciate your idea. That operationalization of idea generation and that feedback loop is one of the things that we're all about at Unison. And one of the things, frankly, that made a big difference for offshore was creating that environment.
So Joel, tell everybody how they can contact you, what Unison can do specifically if they choose to understand go down this path of safety and they want some help. How can Unison and how can they engage directly with you guys?
No, I appreciate that. I mean, there's a few different ways. One, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Two, you can go to unison.io. You see the little email or the website there in the corner and submit a request and say, hey, love to learn more about what you can do. You can download the free ebook that we provide as well. And if Ariane or whoever else can put that link out somewhere that people can click on it and find it, certainly please do that. And then you can email me at joel@unison, that's UNISYN.io. And it's joel@unison.io. And I'm happy to get in touch with you. And I travel a lot. I'm happy to swing by if I'm in town, or we can have a phone call or a Zoom. And I'm happy to talk to you myself and know that you're being taken care of.
And Joe, what we'll do is we'll take the ebook, we'll grab the link that you have or download it, and then we'll email it out to everybody that's registered, whether they've attended or not. We'll send it out to them. And then for the LinkedIn Live folks, we will put it into everybody's direct messages and then a follow-up on the LinkedIn too, and put it into the chat so you can download it from there too. So everyone can access it.
One more thing I would say is, apart from anything Unison related, if you just love leadership and you want to learn how to be a better leader, or you want to provide a resource for your people to be better leaders, I haven't arrived. I'm trying to learn all the time. I know you are the same way, Scott. And one of the greatest joys I have at a weekly level is interviewing much more important people than me on the Frontline Industry podcast. You can find on any podcast platform. That's another way to stay in touch and just go, maybe Unison isn't for me, but I like the power of this conversation. I like the outputs that we're talking about now. And I just want to keep on learning how to be a great leader. Folks like the former CEO of Yum Brands, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell and KFC, and many, many other really important people, again, more important than me, are being interviewed on that. And we learn a lot along the way. So that's another place you can find us at the Frontline Industry podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And you guys also have a nice blog on your website too. People can check it out there at unison.io. You can go there and you can find not only the podcast, but the blog directly on the website. And of course, I'm sure you can find it anywhere on wherever you like to download your podcasts.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Joel, is there anything that I did not ask you that I should have, that folks need to know?
There's folks on this call I know that are in a variety of industries. Most of it's construction, but I know some other folks from landscaping and other industries are on here as well. And frankly, safety is on all of us. And regardless of what industry we're in, safety couldn't be more critical. And if you look at our company motto, again, back in the little corner over here, your best team everywhere, what that means to us is empowering your frontline teams to bring your mission to life every day. And safety should always be our mission, sure. But if there's something else that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's improving revenue or improving your margins or whatever it may be along the way. Those are all company obsessions, things that we're trying to do, the things that you and your board and you and your leadership team talk about every single day. Those are your obsessions. That's what you want to accomplish. But how do you translate that down to the very front lines of your business and empower them to own that mission in their own unique way, where their particular actions play out in achieving that? And can we create an environment through this daily huddle process where they can have the focus, know if they're winning or losing, and all this other stuff we talked about against those goals, whether it's safety or otherwise, we're just interested in helping you bring your mission to life every day. And however that manifests, we're happy to be a partner in that.
Well, Joel, I thank you very much for taking the time to do this and sharing your insights, the story, and I think folks will certainly appreciate the information and a couple of those key takeaways. No matter what, everybody cares about safety, and if you can go back and just listen to your frontline managers, listen to the frontline employees, solicit their advice, but also most importantly, create an atmosphere where they feel free to share that with you. That's what you can do. Those are the biggest takeaways. And of course, dive deeper into it and you'll find nothing but success, I'm sure.
Agreed. Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate the invite on here. At anytime I have a chance to talk about, how much I believe in and love the frontline industries, I always enjoy it. And I can't thank you enough for inviting me on here to do the same thing here today.
Well, you're very welcome, man. And I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. It's the feeling's mutual, and likewise, man. Anything I can do to help you, I'm happy to do it. And I know you do the same for me.
I will. And I will. Yeah. So thank you again, everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Talk soon.